think about how quickly, like the Costco parking lot,
it's reclaimed.
like it's just reclaimed, right? When it's not used, when it's not.
Well, it's even like I clear out my like little hunting spots.
Oh.
And by this fall, I got to do it again. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Matt and Fiona Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're incredibly happy that you're here. As always, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps us out with the algorithms and and hopefully lets all your friends see it too. All right, we are going to jump right in. We don't really have a title for this one yet. I'm still fleshing it out.
Yeah.
I was going to say like reclaiming nature, or nature reclaims or something along those lines.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We have the topic. We just don't have the specific title yet.
So we'll figure out what genius we come up with
Right.
Throughout this episode. So, all right. Fun story time. So this has now happened to me twice.
Yes.
About, probably a month ago. Had some issues with my truck. And it necessitated me getting a new truck.
Right.
So in the meantime...
We just decided that was the best option.
Yeah, that was the best route.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had gone on kind of vacation-y to Florida to go see your mom for a week. So my truck sat for a week. And then we got back, picked up the new truck, but hadn't dealt with the old truck yet.
Right.
Because we weren't trading it in.
Right.
And I had to get some stuff out of it and take some lettering off of it and all that jazz. So we parked it, again, for essentially another week.
Right.
So
Not even.
That is less than 2 weeks. Like
less than 2 weeks.
12 days.
Yes.
It sat in our driveway for a week. And then it sat just off of my dad's driveway.
Yes.
For a week.
Yes.
Neither of us live... Like we live in a subdivision.
Right. In a neighborhood.
We don't live in the woods.
Nope.
It's not, out in a field somewhere.
Right.
It was literally, when it was at my dad's place, it was literally the front bumper where the license plate is was over the driveway.
Right.
So close it was. So we're taking it over to the company that we're selling it to.
Oh.
And driving down the road, and the dash is lighting up. And saying no oil pressure. And I'm like, I just had an oil change done.
Yes.
There is no way that there's no oil pressure unless my mechanic forgot to put the plug in. Like, he's a pretty good mechanic. I can't think he'd do this.
Right.
So pull over to the side of the road, feel the engine. It's not too hot, even though the sensor says it's or the sensor's not saying it's overheating, but it's saying there's no oil
pressure.
So it should be overheating because, again, Google tells me I'm a mechanic. Actually, tells you you're a mechanic.
Yes.
Because I was checking the oil. Check the oil. There's oil in it.
Fine.
Like it's a little low, but it's not ridiculous.
No, a fair amount, clean.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is weird. So we keep driving because we're on the highway. You're following me. And we pull off at the next exit.
Yeah.
Pull into a parking lot. Again, pop the hood to check the oil again. Lots of oil, check underneath. It's not dripping. Nothing weird's going on.
In my mechanic search,
yes,
to become a certified mechanic, it says, if it's not overheating and you have oil, then it's most likely just the oil sensor.
Yeah, a bad sensor.
A bad sensor.
And, sensors go bad. Like it's a car, it happens.
Right.
Lo and behold, we're sitting, or I have the hood up and we're checking out in the vehicle to see what's going on. All of a sudden, I spot a pine cone.
Yes.
Inside the engine bay.
Ooh,
So in the course of 4 days.
Yes.
Literally the 4 days that the truck was at my dad's.
Yep, Monday to Friday. Yes.
Squirrels
Yep.
got into the truck in the engine compartment and squirreled away. Like that? Squirreled away like 15 full-size pine cones and started chewing wire.
Yep.
Because that's what they do. And it reminded me of an incident that happened,
2020.
2020. We had to make a trip into the States in the middle of the pandemic. So we got home and got to deal with our lovely government here, which necessitated a
2-week quarantine.
2-week quarantine. So my truck ended up again sitting for the better part of 3.5 weeks. And in those 3.5 weeks, chipmunks this time chewed through
On our asphalt driveway.
Yep.
Again, subdivision.
Yep. Decided to make a nest and chewed through a bunch of wires and set off a bunch of sensors again.
Yeah.
Which necessitated a tow from downtown to my mechanic to figure this all out. So the moral of the story is don't let animals in your vehicle because they're bad. But more importantly, it's a good example of how quickly nature takes over.
Yes.
Right? And you can, there's a bunch of shows on, I think, History Channel, where they show simulations of how quickly a city that's abandoned will be taken over. And the animals will come back. And, the floral and fauna will literally just run rampant and take it over. We have a big store that has, they moved the store.
Old building to new building, big warehouse. They just built a bigger warehouse.
Yes. But that that original building is still sitting.
Yes.
And it's not having an issue. It's parking lot on the other hand.
I mean, and within a month, you would not know. I mean, and this was a hustle bustle, like busy, like they built a bigger warehouse.
Thousands of people go there every day.
And within a month,
the parking lot has massive weeds growing.
Like just looked utterly abandoned.
Right? And, I hunt and I can go out, and I did this past fall, cleared up a couple of spots that I wanted to hunt from.
Right.
Got them all prepped, good line of sight, all these things. When I go back out in August to start prepping again,
right,
you will not be able to tell that I had cleared those spots out for good shooting lanes and all of these things, right? Nature will have completely encapsulated it, taken it back. That's not the right word. Completely taking it back over.
Yep.
Right? Because no matter how long you try to keep nature out, you're in a constant battle.
Right.
With nature to not be overtaken by
the
it.
world. Yep.
So how we wanted to spin this or use that as a
illustration.
Yeah. Was, it's summertime. Or we're getting close to summer.
Very excited. Warm weather.
So, people are getting a little busier.
Right.
Their schedules are a little bit more social, at least around here. Because again, for some reason, some people don't like the winter. I don't get it.
A lot of people hibernate around here in winter.
I don't.
No, you don't.
I'm in glory.
Yes.
But what we see happen a lot is because it's summer and people are doing more things and they're going on vacations and all this stuff, right? A lot of times it's easy to kind of miss a couple church services that you normally wouldn't.
Right.
And we always think that we can skip a couple days of Bible. We can skip a couple services. We can, maybe catch the stream or catch it later.
Skip some, prayer conversations with God.
Yeah, later in the week we can catch up on it. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We can skip the Matt and Fiona show. We don't have to watch it this week.
Right. Crazy talk.
But just like what happened to my truck, just like what happens to parking lots and buildings and everything else, the second you stop actively keeping nature at bay,
right,
nature's coming back with a vengeance.
Yep.
just like when we are trying to keep the world, when we're trying to keep the devil, when we're trying to keep the sin nature at bay, right? The second we get lackadaisical in that, the second we stop, dealing with that and actively working on that,
right,
it's coming back with a vengeance. And I think we overlook a lot of times how quickly that can happen.
Yeah.
Right?
You can so quickly. You skip a week, you skip a second week, you skip a third week. And all of a sudden, that is, even if you've gone for years, all of a sudden, it becomes easier and easier to miss a service. And what we don't realize is when we do miss that service is what we don't realize, what we may not necessarily see like we do in nature, is the fact that the world is entering in. The enemy is entering in. He's finding footholds. He's finding cracks in the door. He's finding, any little area to which he can kind of maneuver and find his way into your life. When you don't have that active mental, in church, in Bible, in prayer, that consistency.
Yeah.
So easily, it's easy for the world to creep back into your life if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And watching that happen to your truck, the part that he didn't tell about with the story, which I thought was hilarious, when we finally left that parking lot and we're like, okay, we're just going to drive it to the company that we sold it to. As he took that turn, all of a sudden, a whole more piles. I just watch all these pine cones just fall out and tumble on. And it was funny. It was funny because it didn't matter at that point, right? But we didn't even see that when we were digging in the engine. We didn't realize and recognize how much of the world had gotten in because it was so hidden inside the engine that we didn't even recognize. And you went in there and we had flashlights. We're digging in there. He's got knives. He's digging them out. He's trying to get all of that out. But he didn't see or get all of it out. It was still in there. And I guarantee you, there was stuff that didn't fall out that was stuck in there even when we got there that we have no idea about. But that's what happens when we don't keep up our consistency. We don't keep up our Bible, our church attendance. We're not keeping up our church attendance because, yes, our pastor wants us there, and yes, it is encouraging. But the reason why our pastor wants us there is not for him, it's for us.
Yeah, it's because he knows it's important for us.
Yes, he knows that this is the way to combat the world. This is the way to keep the world out. This is the way to keep the enemy out. This is the way to keep our fight going in everything that we have to do. What I find so disconcerting is so often when somebody will walk away for a time, right? They're going through something or they're fighting something internally. And in their mind, the easy thing to do is to just step away,
take a break.
Yep.
Right. Find themselves, however you want to put it. Right. A couple services turns into a couple weeks, which sometimes turns into a couple months.
And turns into their habit.
And then when they walk back in their mind, they're walking back in exactly where they were when they left.
Right.
Right. And they don't realize all of the damage that was done and all of the impact that has likely happened in their life, that they now have to get all of that back just to get back to where they were when they left.
And not to saying that God can't restore that, and he won't,
no,
and he can't supernaturally,
Mm-hmm.
but people don't realize, as you said, people don't recognize the impact that the world has had on them during that time that they've chosen to walk away.
Well, again, take that parking lot example.
Right.
Right? Parking lot stops being used within a week, a month, 6 months. It is overgrown like crazy.
Yep.
So yeah, when the new owner comes in, awesome, they got a big parking lot.
Right.
but they got to put all the work in. Just because they bought it and they've moved back in doesn't mean all of a sudden nature's gone.
Right.
They've got to put in all that work to clean that parking lot back up,
And
kill all those weeds, get all this stuff out.
And it is going to be just even, you got to think about it.
Way more work to do it than if they just kept it up
Yes.
week to week.
Yes, but
Right?
even like you say that, I think about our lawn. We were a little bit busy. Well, you were a little busy. I was busy too, but you cut the grass.
Typically, yes.
Typically, yes. And instead of it being like a week,
Right.
it wound up being about
2.5.
no, not quite, but about 2 weeks. And man, we could tell the difference in because just due to life, you couldn't get to it. Rain, right? And then you'd have time, but it would be
There's a bunch of
pouring
weather
rain
and-
and everything. But because we couldn't have the consistency of keeping up,
Right.
it
That
was
took twice as long.
it took twice as long.
Yep.
It was overgrown. It looked rough.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to know what else? To be perfectly honest, out on the deck, it wasn't peaceful. There wasn't a calmness that we usually have because it looked disheveled.
Right.
And, so fortunately this past weekend we were able to, the royal we.
Yes.
The royal we were able to get to it. And by putting it did take you longer. It took extra effort. It took extra time. But when you did the work, all of a sudden, slowly but surely, that peace. And so like today when we're sitting out, yesterday, whenever it was, and we're just sitting out there's a peace then and a calm because we brought it back,
Yeah. Got it back to where it should be.
got it back to where it should be. And there's a peace and a calm that comes along with it. And I feel like I can relax and enjoy it. But this past week, man, I did not want to be out there. And like, we have a nice backyard. But that's what happens. The world takes over so quickly.
Yeah.
And it may look natural.
Well, and it's so easy to think that, I'm a good Christian. I go to church. I don't need to put in a lot of work. Right?
Right.
To keep it up. Right? I can just show up. I can just kind of coast.
Right.
Right? And so, yeah. Can I coast on the lawn care? I can a little
Right,
bit.
yeah.
Right. You can go and just, go and give it a quick cut and it's fine.
Right.
But there comes a point where if you don't get out the whippersnipper,
Right.
or the string trimmer, I think it's the
I was
technical
just
term.
thinking that.
The string trimmer.
Makes it look so much better.
If you don't do that, if you don't, edge the gardens
the
a little
gardens,
bit.
yes.
If you don't do, if you just do the bare minimum, does it look good? Yeah, it looks all right. But there comes a point where all of a sudden the cracks in that maintenance start to show.
Yes.
Right? Because you're doing the big stuff, but you're not doing any of the little stuff.
Right.
And the little stuff is where all the details are,
Yes.
right? If you're not going out and doing all of those things, if you're not running the string trimmer through it, if you don't come summer, water it a little bit,
Right.
it's going to go brown. It's going to go crusty. It's going to be not as nice as it could be.
Yes.
And in our walk, it's the same thing, right? If all you're doing is showing up, right? You're coming in late. You're there.
You're putting in your time. You're checking a box.
Yeah. If that's all you're doing, then yeah, will you keep up? Sure, a little bit. But will those cracks start to show a little bit as well? Probably, right? I've heard over the years from a lot of, I will call them fluffy Christians, right? Lovey-dovey.
Right.
Oh, Jesus is nothing but love. And,
Right.
The fact that someone showed up is just great. And that's all we have to care about.
Right.
That's fantastic. And I
Yes.
love that that's where they're
Keep showing up.
100%. But it takes, it eliminates the fact that, or ignores the fact that the world is always trying to creep in,
Yeah.
right?
Take over.
Always
Find a
trying to
crack.
take over. And Ed Cole had kind of a saying or a principle thing of essentially just constant effort. You constantly have to work at your walk. You've got to work at your marriage. You have to work at all these things. You can't just show up and expect to be great at it.
You have to consistently parent.
Exactly.
Yes.
All of these things, right? You'll be able to correct me. I'm pretty sure it's Roy Hicks who has had a saying of, there's two natures in my chest.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
One is good and one is evil. The one I feed is the one that will win.
Right.
And be the strongest.
Yeah.
So I've got to feed the godly side.
Yep.
And keep the worldly side at bay.
Our flesh.
Yeah. You've got to keep your flesh at bay because it's not, hey, I got saved and all of a sudden
because
I'm godly.
Your flesh nature is the one that if you don't feed your spirit man, your flesh will always naturally take over.
Yeah.
Just like the garden will naturally take over.
Yeah. Nature will take it over.
Yes. So it is a constant battle to keep our lawn clean and neat and trimmed and organized. It is a constant battle for us to maintain our Christian walk, to maintain our relationship with Jesus, because if we don't, that flesh nature, that sin nature is what is going to take over. Well, absolutely.
There's so much investment that has to happen. There's so much growth that you have to put the effort in to obtain.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's the side that, it's one thing to keep nature at bay. Right. But the best way to keep nature at bay is to grow and move forward.
Right.
Right.
And do all the details.
Do all the details. So again, not to continually come back to lawn care, but it seems that's what we're doing. We are in a constant battle with our lawn, with dandelions. As everyone is, we get this. But we are constantly battling dandelions.
Yep.
And as you battle dandelions, you can take them out, dig them down and pull the root and all that jazz. And I do everything possible to encourage the kids and get them excited about digging out dandelions, which usually works a little bit as long as I'm willing to put in the time.
Right.
But I can remove as many dandelions as I want. It will not solve my dandelion problem because by simply removing the dandelions, right, keeping nature at bay, keeping sin nature at bay, by removing them, that's great. But all I've done is left a bunch of open areas with dirt for the next dandelion seed from my neighbor or wherever.
Or our son. Sorry.
To seed and grow a new weed.
Yes.
If you talk to any landscaper, they'll tell you this. The best way to solve weeds in your lawn is to overseed your lawn.
Right.
Your lawn is the best defense against weeds because if it's thick and lush and you're growing a stronger lawn, the weeds can't get in.
Right.
And even if the seed does get down, it won't get any water because the grass has taken all the water. It won't get any sunlight because the grass is blocking out the sun from the seed that settled down in the dirt.
Right.
Right? But everybody looks and goes, oh, I'm just going to pull the dandelion. That'll solve my problem. And it doesn't. Does it help? Yes.
Does it look good on the surface for the moment?
Totally. But
100%.
if you don't continually grow your lawn,
right,
and grow your grass and make your grass stronger, the weeds just come right back.
Yep.
It's not because you didn't get the root. It's because there's just a lot of weeds that are floating through the air. And it's going to get in the grass.
Yeah.
Right?
Nature's out there.
Your spiritual walk is the same way. The best way to combat getting sin out of your life is by having a stronger walk with God.
Doing more for him, getting more of him, being more like him.
Exactly.
More Bible, more prayer, more church, more praise and worship, more of the things that we have been given as weapons to combat the world being able to creep in.
As you continually strengthen your walk.
I mean, and this goes forgiveness.
Oh, yeah, everything.
Right? All of this.
As that continues to grow and become a stronger weave,
Right.
And it's woven into your life, into who you are.
Yep.
You've created less surface area,
Right.
less cracks where the world can get in.
Yeah.
Right? The best way to have a better walk with God is to have a stronger walk with God. You've got to just put more time in,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, nature is going to come back and take over
Yeah. Every time.
every time. That's all I got,
I think that's good.
unless you want to get into more long hair.
I think we're good for the moment, although
That was a lot of long
there
hair.
was a lot of long hair. Started with squirrels, ended with grass. Squirrels.
Chipmunks. They're cute, but man, I do not
So
like them.
we say all this for you quickly to recognize and realize that if you're not careful, the world will get in. The enemy will creep in, and he's literally looking. I mean, he just needs a little sliver. He doesn't need much. And the more you strengthen yourself, the more you are consistent and continual. It doesn't take long. You miss a church service, you miss a second church service, you miss a third church service. It gets easier and easier to miss, and it gets easier and easier for the enemy to get in, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Right. All right, we're going to leave it there on that encouraging note. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Like, subscribe, share, subscribe, all of those things. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the Matt and Fiona Show. Thanks for watching.
Have a great week.
See ya.
Bye.